Today we're going to cover the basic supplies and materials that you need for starting macrame. The first thing that we're going to cover is a board or some sort of pinning surface. There are these really nice boards now that are put out by the beadsmith. They're self-healing. They have grid lines on them to help you keep straight, a measuring device down the edge. They have slits where you can catch your cords, keep them off to the sides when you're not using them. And they're self-healing. They're really nicely made. They come in two sizes. There's the smaller one and the big one. The smaller one is basically all I ever use for doing jewelry pieces. If it gets bigger than this, if you're making like a necklace, you can always unpin it, move it up, and let some of it hang over the edge. But by all means, if you like the larger size, go for that. They're not too terribly expensive, and they are a good investment. If you don't want to make the investment, not sure you're going to like it, you can do what I did to start off with, well, before these were even available. I cut a couple pieces of cork, glued them together, cut it to size to fit a plain old clipboard that I had laying around. I just clipped that on there. It is kind of nice. It's got measurements. It's standard measurements down one side, metric on the other. Works really well. You'll also need pins, and I use a combination of regular old straight pins like for sewing and the smaller T-pins. Okay, so you got board, pins. Then to get started, you'll need something to straighten out your cord. I use a hair straightening device. You can also use a large barrel curling iron, works just the same, or some people even iron the cord. Whatever makes you happy. Don't spend any big amount of money on it, but it's pretty handy to have. And as far as the rest of the tools, pair of scissors. I don't know about you, but I have a strong pair of reading glasses because the knots get pretty tiny. Fray check, which isn't necessarily a have to, but I coat the ends of the cord with it to get the beads on easier. It'll make your life easier. It's worth the $3 or $4 investment. You'll like it. As far as glue for finishing, I use GS Hypo Cement. You'll notice I have a little Tupperware container here, or Tupperware knockoff container. I keep that, use that to keep my beads corralled while I'm knotting. I've got some split rings in here. You'll want to use those rather than just jump rings. Every time I try jump rings, the little bitty cords somehow work their way out, so I do recommend split rings. I have them in two sizes, and I do recommend, I use the one for the ends of bracelets, and the smaller ones a lot of times I use for earrings. This larger one is around 7 to 8 millimeter, and the small one's probably about 4. So you might want to grab a package of those. Then cord. These cords are a nylon twisted cord. They are put out by a couple of different brands. Ceylon makes the taller, skinnier spools, and Superlon, sometimes called S-Lon, makes the spools that are a little bit shorter and squatter. They're both basically the same cord. I use them both interchangeably. Both brands put out 4 different sizes. For these purposes, I'm only going to talk about 2 of them. The other 2 are smaller yet, and I don't use them that often. So the biggest one that they have that I use is a 1 millimeter cord. It's called their Tex 400, and you can see how big that is. That one you can use with an 8/0 seed bead. It will fit on there. An 11/0 will not fit. Okay. Some of the designs, if you're using the bigger stuff, you'll want to make sure that your beads have larger holes. Just a note to self. A lot of times gemstones don't work too well. The smaller size, and the one that I use the most often, is the 0.5 millimeter. Get you an idea of the size of that. and that will work with 11/0 seed beads, provided that they are a pretty good brand. I find a lot more irregularity with the check beads than I do with like the Japanese ones, so you might want to watch that for starting. It'll get a little frustrating if you have to try several beads before you get one to fit. If you want more information about any of this, you can find it on my blog page at notjustmacrame.com.